Awful lot about Manuel Ugarte as a Manchester United target, and this one has been close and fee agreed and all these sorts of things for a little while now, but he's still not officially a Manchester United player. So, I mean, I'm guessing nothing for Manchester United to worry about here.
I don't think so at all, and we know he was their prime midfield target this summer. I think Erik ten Hag has been pretty clear the targets he wanted. So much has changed off the pitch of Manchester United this summer, right to the top. Mohamed Barada from Manchester City, Dan Ashworth, Dave Brailsford, Jason Wilcox. So clear what they all wanted, and I think it's a matter of when, not if, this gets done.
Yeah, he's in the UK, Manuel Ugarte. He's been having a medical ahead of that move from Paris Saint-Germain. It's worth 60 million euros, 50 million euros initial payment, 10 million euros in performance-related add-ons. Shouldn't be any problem with this deal going through. And Scott McTominay is a player that could leave Manchester United. We were told initially that he was going to be flying to Italy today ahead of finalising that move to Napoli, worth 30 million euros. That's 25 million euros initial payment, plus 5 million euros in add-ons. There were just a few documents that needed signing off, and that's been happening early this evening and into tonight, and we think now McTominay will fly to Italy tomorrow to finalise that deal. With regard to Ugarte and McTominay, I'm told both deals are on track, and there's every expectation that sooner rather than later Ugarte will become a Manchester United player and McTominay will become a Napoli player.
OK, let's attention to Raheem Sterling. He's got 2 new days to find a new club. Dharmesh, what solutions are Chelsea working on to get him out?
Yeah, it could be an interesting couple of days now for Raheem Sterling and Chelsea in general. What Chelsea are doing is that they are speaking to clubs. They've taken it upon themselves to try and sort out a future effectively for Raheem Sterling. So they will try and get agreements with interested clubs. Then they will put those interested clubs and those agreements to Raheem Sterling, and then it will be up to Raheem Sterling to decide where he wants to go. He won't get involved in those discussions until there are agreements with these clubs, because there's such little time left in this window. But it is clear that Raheem Sterling's future could be key to Chelsea's pursuit of Jadon Sancho from Manchester United. Now, Chelsea remain in talks with Manchester United over the signing of Sancho. Sancho himself understood to be open to the move, but for Chelsea to do that deal, it would require them to release some of their players, notably Raheem Sterling. It should be noted here, though, if Manchester United sell or loan Jadon Sancho in this summer's transfer window, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will need to replace Jadon Sancho for the remainder of this window, because they are well stocked in the forward areas. However, it is clear that the idea of Raheem Sterling potentially joining United is something that Manchester United will consider, because he is a good player and it's Raheem Sterling, and it would be quite a unique market opportunity, if you like, for Manchester United. So as it stands, all options remain open, and those options include Jadon Sancho remaining at Manchester United and Raheem Sterling still remaining at Chelsea, even though he is part of that 33-man squad just now, but he hasn't got a shirt number. Just carrying on with Jadon Sancho, Juventus, they're still pushing to do a deal for Sancho. They want to do a loan, and that loan would incorporate a loan fee and the payment of wages. But Juventus would want to negotiate with Manchester United a portion of those wages to be paid by United. United's preference would definitely be a permanent deal or a loan with an obligation, but a loan in itself cannot be ruled out with the remaining hours that are left in this transfer window, simply because he's effectively got 3 years left on his contract. And if he was to go to Juventus, just hypothetically speaking, on a season-long loan this season and played well, he would still have 2 years left on his contract effectively when he came back next summer, and maybe an increased market valuation. So I think Juventus are keeping an eye on that situation. They're waiting for United's decision and for Jadon Sancho's decision. But whatever they choose to do, if it is to be a loan, then you would think that that loan fee would have to be a substantial one for United to consider it.
OK, that's Sancho. Let's get back to Chelsea, Michael, because, you know, Dharmesh alluded to it. I mean, they've got an awful lot to do in this next couple of days. Yeah,
but I think what we've seen over the last few days is an excellent win for Chelsea at Wolves the other day, scoring 6 goals. Enzo Maresca has been pretty clear. I've enjoyed listening to him, actually, about, look, the previous players, I've choose my squad. Everything else isn't down to him. He knows what he wants. He knows the amount of players he wants to work with. We know there's a number of players who aren't part of his plans anymore. What we also know is they want/need a striker. We told you yesterday about the interest in Ivan Toney. And, of course, the one we all know about, it's Rossi.
Yeah.
And how does Sterling compare to what United already have in their squad?
Well, yesterday night on Soccer Special, Troy Deeney on the panel said if Raheem Sterling was to make the move to Old Trafford, then he would be better than what they already have in those positions. So very interesting to then compare them. Just worth noting before we look into some of the players here, Ahmad, who of course has been playing a right midfield, or right wing, I should say, for United. He of course didn't play too much last season, so he's not here, but we'll show you three other options United have at their disposal. Looking at games played, of course, Raheem Sterling played quite a lot for Chelsea last season, whether that was on the left wing or the right wing. Compared to the others, they all played a decent amount of games, but let's go on and find out a bit more about how they performed last season in the Premier League. Raheem Sterling got a few goals last season, and he has done consistently for Chelsea last season. Anthony, perhaps, as we know, struggled a little bit towards or throughout the season to find his best form. But Marcus Rashford, Alejandro Garnacho, playing predominantly on the left wing, both contributed to United, but perhaps Garnacho a bit more consistent. Let's look at the assists. In terms of that, it's probably not a lot really to look into that, really, in terms of to differentiate between these players. The only thing I would probably highlight is Marcus Rashford perhaps didn't really reach those levels of previous seasons last year, and Anthony again struggling, but Raheem Sterling, Garnacho perhaps in front as we go through last season. Looking at the minutes per goal, again, we've already talked about Anthony's struggles last season, but Raheem Sterling here, 247.6 minutes per goal, but his games played were slightly lower. You look at Marcus Rashford, Garnacho, who predominantly played on the left wing, were perhaps a bit more consistent on that front as well, considering they played more games. Chances created now, and this is where I would probably draw my own conclusions, because I think when you look at Alejandro Garnacho, of course, he has played a lot of games for someone so young, but he's really made that left wing position his own when he's had the opportunities. You look at Raheem Sterling, he's able to do a little bit as well on both wings, considering he did change position a little bit. The other two, Anthony and Marcus Rashford, not so much. But let's look at touches in the opposition box next. And again, I think this is where, when it does come up, Alejandro Garnacho, when it does come up, it's absolutely fine. But what I will say is when we did look at those stats earlier, Garnacho was really leading the four of them again. And for me, Raheem Sterling could be a good addition because he can play both the wings, of course. But for me, if that maybe stumps Garnacho's progression, is it worth it? I mean, what do you both think?
I've been surprised that Garnacho has not started the season for Manchester United, given his productivity last season. And whenever I watched Manchester United last season, I thought he was their best player. I was very, very impressed. So a little bit of a surprise that he sat out the first two games, albeit he's an excellent option for Manchester United to have from the bench. And maybe perhaps that tells you something about how good Diallo's been on the wing for him to have got the nod on the right-hand side. My concern would be if you look at all those players other than Anthony, Sterling, Rashford, Garnacho, would you say that, Nabaid, that all of them, their best positions on the left?
Probably, and so then you've kind of got the problem of where does Sterling fit in, but as we saw at City, Sterling can play off the right. Sterling can also play through the middle, to be honest. I think the big key difference for me is he's a goal scorer, and Garnacho, although I completely agree, is probably Manchester United's most dangerous forward. He's still young, still often makes mistakes in front of goal. Rashford's been out of form, like Dan said. And then Anthony, as you've seen by the stats, isn't someone who's going to score goals for you. So Sterling might be the one that gets them into double figures from a forward perspective, and that might be useful. But as you just said there, I don't know if an out-and-out left winger is exactly what United need at this point.
Do you think maybe they're earmarking Sterling to be on that right-hand side based on what he did for Manchester City that couple of years where he played right, stayed very wide and came into the box and got on the end of things? It was the same with Sane on the other side. But it's obviously very different doing that for Manchester City in that team to what Manchester United are at the moment. And even in those first two games, I'm still not really sure what Manchester United are.
Well, Eric Ten Hag has said that he's gone on record saying that he wants United to be the best transition team in the world. So does that suit Sterling?
I wouldn't say so. Sterling, like that Manchester City period, sort of benefited from back post chances, lots of balls being put into the box. United don't put the ball in from the left-hand side because unless Shaw's fit, which he hasn't been, Mazraoui's he's two-footed, but he's a right-footed left-back. He's not going to be someone who gets down the line and crosses it in. And then in transition, Raheem Sterling is not as quick as he once was. He's definitely going to be someone who's going to be waiting for chances to come his way in and around the box. I actually said this a few years ago that I feel like long term he might end up being a fox in the box centre forward. So I don't know whether Manchester United and the transitional signing of Sterling makes much sense in terms of what they're trying to do. But I think it sort of speaks to the fact that, yes, they've got Sancho and they sort of want to let Sancho go. Can we get someone in place?
I mean, we've been talking quite a lot there about Raheem Sterling, Jadon Sancho. Obviously, Chelsea aren't the only team in the race for Sancho because Juventus is still pushing to sign the player. They're expected to propose a loan deal that would incorporate a loan fee plus a percentage of the wages that they would be able to pay. Juventus's proposal would require United to cover a portion of Sancho's salary. It's thought United would require the loan fee as well to be a substantial one. How have United got on in terms of sales, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, actually, when you look at it, because we were talking a bit earlier about Scott McTominay getting close to his move to Napoli and also Hannibal confirming his move. But when you look at what United have done in the last decade, it's really interesting reading because actually with McTominay's fee going through, this is actually their second best window in the last decade in terms of sales. And I think what you have to also acknowledge is, the likes of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Willy Kambwala are all part of that total as well. But what doesn't show up there are also the players who left at the end of last season, the likes of Rafa Varane, Anthony Martial, who left at the end of their contract. So wages-wise, they would have been off the books as well. So I think you do have to look at what United have done in terms of their new structure. Omar Barada in as CEO, Jason Wilcox as the technical director, and Dan Ashworth as the sporting director as well. They've been able to change United's strategy and mentioned with Hannibal, that we're seeing more of the likes of sell-on clauses that have been included in a lot of the players who have left the club. So you would hope, for United's point of view, in the future, they're going to recoup a bit more money if those players move on in the future. So it's a different strategy, and clearly it's worked so far in this window.
Manchester United open talks over Raheem Sterling deal. Sporting director Dan Ashworth discusses swap with Chelsea that would take Jadon Sancho to Stamford Bridge. Manchester United have open talks over a deal for Raheem Sterling, but will only progress in a swap for Jadon Sancho on their own terms. It is understood that United sporting director Dan Ashworth was in dialogue with Chelsea earlier on Tuesday over a sensational package that would see the two England forwards move in opposite directions. With Sterling frozen out of the first-team squad, United are determined to make a situation at Stamford Bridge work to their advantage by paying no outlay to land the Premier League's third-highest scorer among those currently playing in the competition. It has been expected that Chelsea would pay part of Sterling's wages, more than $300,000 per week, at his next club as they look for departure options. Sancho is wanted at Chelsea to add to Enzo Maresca's attacking options. One other as yet undisclosed European club have also been in contention for Sterling, who Telegraph Sport reported last week would train with Chelsea's under-21 squad if no deal is suitable before Friday's transfer window deadline. Sterling was left out of Maresca's squad for the opening weekend of the season and stripped of his squad number, making it clear where he stood in the pecking order at Chelsea. Premier League clubs have been approached through intermediaries about the possibility of a deal for Sterling, which is normal practice when a club wants to sell a player. It is understood that a permanent deal rather than loan is preferable to the player. Chelsea have been long-term admirers of Sancho, who was born in London and started in the Watford Academy before his moves to Manchester City, Borussia Dortmund, and United. He has also been left out of squads at the start of the season under Erik ten Hag, whom he fell out with last season before being loaned back to Dortmund. While talks are at a very early stage, United and Chelsea discussing the situation shows they are both willing to at least explore whether a deal can be done in the next 3 days. Swap deals are rare between high-profile clubs, although this is a unique situation for all parties. Sterling has also won Premier League titles with United's neighbours Manchester City and started his career at their bitter rivals Liverpool, although it is thought that finding the right club is the most important factor for him. Pep Guardiola spoke with Sterling in pre-season when Chelsea played City, with the Catalan coach often talking about how important the forward was to his success at the Etihad Stadium. But the biggest obstacle to getting a deal done with any team will be thrashing out the financial terms of a player who has 3 seasons left on his current contract. It would likely require Chelsea to pay a significant portion of his current salary across the terms of the deal with his next club, Going out on loan is of little benefit to Sterling, as he would be in the same position in a year's time still at Chelsea and unwanted. The Sancho element of a swap deal is a new dimension. He is also on a healthy salary at United, which would effectively be replaced by Sterling's, who would give experience to Ten Hag's squad. Juventus agree deal to sign Jadon Sancho. According to RMC Sport reporter Fabrice Hawkins, Manchester United have finalized a deal with Juventus for the transfer of Jadon Sancho. The English forward featured regularly during United's preseason and made a substitute appearance in their Community Shield defeat to Manchester City. Sancho was excluded from the squads for United's opening 2 Premier League matches of the season against Fulham and Brighton and Hove Albion. United had reportedly begun negotiations with Chelsea over a potential swap deal involving Sancho and Raheem Sterling. However, it appears United have now come to terms with Juventus to let go of Sancho. The Turin club has agreed to sign the English winger on loan with a commitment to purchase. Sancho is eager to complete the move to Juventus before the transfer window closes.